Welcome to About Agile Scrum. This presentation will just give you a little introduction to what Agile methodologies are and a little bit about what the Scrum process is. A good way to understand this is to kind of contrast this to a traditional systems development lifecycle. And what's exciting here, I think, is kind of the recognition that there's both an art and science to software development. You know, from the science point of view, we can say and gather specific requirements and translate that into specific artifacts that need to be in the system and kind of do that pretty systematically. On the other hand, we're also trying to create something new, create new value and new systems. And so in creating something new, things don't always go as planned. And so Scrum, in a way, and the Agile methodologies sort of capture a method of going after something new rather than following the traditional life cycle, which kind of discourages making changes in mid-process. Incremental methods in software development are not brand new, but really, I guess in the 90s, we saw them starting to get more respect. And in 2001, with the publication of the Agile Manifesto, then a number of the camps in this Agile world kind of came together and said, "Hey, what are we trying to do?" And what they said was, we want to value individuals and interactions over processes and tools. So you got to think of this. Think of the Agile Manifesto as sort of in a way, it's a rebellion against the software development lifecycle, right? The software development lifecycle says, hey, let's get the requirements right in the first place. And once those requirements are right, we're going to follow this step by step through to the end result of the software that will result from those requirements. And so it takes some of the creativity out of it if you're trying to invent something new where you're kind of locked in to what was decided at the beginning, and you're not taking advantage of what might be learned new as you go through the process. And what you learn new, both technically, that the systems analyst might be learning about new software or methods, but also what the user group or the business group might be learning about ways they could do their business better. Okay, so the idea is not that processes and the software development tools are not important. It's just that if we focus on individuals and interactions, we can talk about the communications and the inventions of new ideas and modifying the specifications when we see the specifications aren't exactly what we wanted. Okay, so we value working software over comprehensive documentation. Again, not to say that documentation is bad. However, in the traditional systems development lifecycle, one might get kind of caught up in getting complete and correct detailed documentation for, a minimal or maybe not the most important piece of software or not the best software. So in an Agile world, we try to get a piece of software that works out there in front of people and have them using it, even if the documentation is not complete. Customer collaboration over contract negotiation. Again, that means instead of gathering the requirements from the customer and then saying that you're locked into that like a contract, we're saying we're going to keep working through the process. Responding to change over following the plan. Not that planning is bad, but recognizing places where you can adapt and learn as you go is valuable too. Different Agile camps out there. These are different methods of achieving it. How do you achieve this if you're not using, you're not going to follow the systems development lifecycle? There's different ways of the systems analysts and customers interacting. We're going to talk a little bit about Scrum and here. Rapid applications development, dynamic systems development method, some different ways of achieving the goals of the Agile Manifesto. Some of the things you'll see in all the methodologies is an important concept called time boxing, right? So this is really the opposite of the systems development lifecycle. It means we're going to work on something for a fixed period of time, and we're going to evaluate what we were able to accomplish in that period of time and make decisions on how to move forward. So in the systems development lifecycle, if you're developing software, you're very focused on the requirements. You try to keep to your schedule, but if you haven't finished the software, then you usually keep working on the software until it's done rather than stopping at the end time, right? So if the schedule says to stop in 3 months and you're only halfway done, well, most programmers would just kind of keep on programming, maybe work some overtime, try to get that software done, but they wouldn't just say, okay, we're done, we'll stop there. You know, and time boxing is the opposite. We just say, work for a month, or, you know, this can be in any kind of time frame. You can have a meeting and says, we're going to have a meeting for an hour and see what we accomplish. That's time boxing too. So work for a set amount of time, see how much can be accomplished, and then reevaluate. What's good about this in software development is if we're using a new technology, creating a new type of system, it's hard to predict how fast we can put that together. So with time boxing, we can say we can put a month of development effort behind it, see what the product looks like, and kind of now we can gauge whether it's worth investing another month or multiple months in working on that. The Scrum product side, a lot of this comes out of product development in non-software areas. And the idea is if you're developing a new product, whether software or otherwise, you better make sure you're developing a product that the stakeholders will appreciate. Okay, so if you're building a new car, will car buyers buy it? And so you gather information from those prospective stakeholders, you develop prototypes, talk about it, adjust the design as you go, and in the end, you need somebody that's responsible for making sure that product meets the needs of whoever it may be. Could be end users within your organization, could be software you're trying to sell. The management philosophy around Scrum is in self-organizing teams. Okay, so that contrasts again to a systems development lifecycle where we usually have a particular person who's responsible for a particular activity, and they will complete that activity and then hand off the documentation of that activity to the next person sort of in the workflow. Okay, but in Scrum, we usually have a software development team with a variety of skills from programming, business environment, documentation, working together and looking at the backlog or the requirements for a project and dividing those among the team however they best feel they can accomplish that. Scrum teams are formed. They're guided by the product owner. So the product owner now is a person that has return on investment responsibility. They need to make sure the product matches up with the needs. And when I say return on investment, that could be selling a software product commercially, or it could just mean using it internally if this is internal to your organization. The team has on it a Scrum Master. But again, the Scrum Master is not really the boss of the team, but more of a facilitator that's an expert in the Scrum process, working with the team on a day-to-day basis. So the Scrum Master makes sure the team follows some good Scrum protocols, but the Scrum Master does not tell the team members what task that they should work on. Once, as the team develops an increment of its product, then it will show it to the product owner, and see if it's meeting the needs of the stakeholders. So the product owner is someone that works closely with customers, users, other stakeholders, collaborates with the Scrum Master and the team to describe the needs and the priorities of those stakeholders so that the software product is focused on the most important needs with each increment or each time-boxed software development effort. Scrum process will start with project initiation. Project initiation begins with a product vision. Here's a good place to contrast against a systems development lifecycle, right? The product vision is really important in that we define, what problems is this software going to solve, who's going to use it, but it does not have the details of a requirements analysis that you'd find in the software development lifecycle. And then it follows iterative sprints. A sprint is a software development effort that develops an increment or a piece of the software. Might be 3 to 5 weeks long. They vary a lot, by the organization. They begin with a sprint planning meeting. And this looks at, what is in the backlog? What requirements are we going to work on in this sprint? Each day, the sprint has a daily scrum. The daily scrum says, hey, what are you working on? And what problems do you face? And do we need to do something about that? What are you going to accomplish today? Sprint review meetings are used at the end of the sprint to show the increment of the software to the product owner and stakeholders. So once one increment is completed in 3 to 5 weeks, we will present that to the stakeholders. And the stakeholders are going to tell us if we're meeting their needs after, you can see, a minimal investment. We've just invested 3 to 5 weeks, and now we'll show that to the stakeholders, and the stakeholders can tell us, hey, is that going to work? We also get a better idea how much we can accomplish in 3 to 5 weeks. Did we get a lot of it done in 3 to 5 weeks, or only a little tiny portion? In addition to the sprint review meeting, there's a sprint retrospective meeting at the end of each sprint. And the retrospective meeting says, hey, is our team this is an internal meeting, not for stakeholders, and we're looking at, hey, is our team process working? Are we working together? Is there something that's in our way? Do we have the right team? Things like that. Here's just kind of a graphic overview. The product backlog are kind of the requirements, similar to requirements, and they're the major things that this software product needs to accomplish. You can see the sprint backlog is the subset of the product backlog. Let's just take a few of those most important things, and we'll implement those. Within the sprint, we have the 30-day life cycle. That's what I referred to as 3 to 5 weeks, the length of the sprint. But within that 30-day life cycle, each day we're talking to each other, our team members, and deciding what we're going to accomplish and if anything has gotten in our way. When we finish a single sprint, we will have a working increment of the software, a piece of software that actually does something that we can now bring back to stakeholders and rethink what needs to be done in the next sprint. That's just kind of a high-level overview of the Scrum process, and I hope that you kind of got a flavor for the Scrum process, a flavor for the self-organizing teams, where time boxing comes in a number of places, and how this kind of contrasts to a traditional software development life cycle process. Thank you.